Let's get into the top 10 mistakes made in home cinema. Though these are in no particular order, this is perhaps one of the DIY mistakes we see the most, because not enough people specify their screen before the projector. Just as I covered in part 1 of our home cinema design guide, the first thing you need to specify after choosing your seating position is the screen. However, what often happens when people are working to a particularly tight budget is they look for an affordable projector first, look at what maximum screen size it can project, and fail to consider the throw distance or calculate the optimum screen size for where they're sitting. What this leads to is a bunch of awful outcomes. The screen could be larger than the maximum size of the projection, the screen is smaller than the minimum size of projection considering where the projector is mounted, or the screen is too large or too small for the seating position to maximize the quality of the experience. So there is one super easy way to avoid this mistake. Specify your cinema in this order: seating position, then screen size, then projector. It's also helpful to draw out the room and plot where the main seating position is, and use a protractor to work out what the optimum screen size is. The recommended is between 35 and 55 degrees, but you should be aiming for around 45. Remember though that your screen may be proud from the wall, so make sure to factor that in with any drawings that you do. Other things to consider would be where your projector can or will be mounted, as a throw ratio could affect the size of screen that you can have. One of the easiest ways to work this out as well is to use the Projector Central calculator website, which we have linked before and I've linked in the description below. Taking these steps before making any purchases will ensure that you don't hit a wall when it comes to install time, and will make for an awesome fatigue-free watching experience when you finally sit down to enjoy it. Number 2. Brightly coloured rooms. Now, I have nothing against a flamboyantly coloured room, but when it comes to cinema, you seldom walk into a Cineworld or an Everyman cinema in the UK and find brightly coloured decoration and furnishings. This is because cinema is all about minimizing the distractions and immersing you in the story on screen. Even in some of the best home cinemas that I've stepped into, the only mistake I've been able to pick out is the choice of wall colors and materials around and near the screen. Anything other than black or a very dark color for the screen wall and any wall that sits within the field of vision has the potential to cause a distracting reflection. If you insist on putting a bright color near the screen, try and use a matte fabric or super matte paint. But my recommendation would be that the places to add splashes of colour would be with your seating and with RGB lighting for the room. Number 3. Sightlines. This is another one often overlooked by the DIY cinema builder, and also everyone putting in TV walls at present, it seems. Head over to Instagram and check out the sheer amount of people building a media wall with a fireplace underneath. I'm not going to lie, that has to be the worst trend in home entertainment right now. In cinema, sightlines, when we are talking about rows of seating, are important because you don't want the person in front's head blocking a portion of the screen from your view. Ensuring that there is enough clearance with your risers to give every seated person a full view of the screen is very important, but sometimes overlooked. But there is another issue that pertains to the TV wall situation. By placing the TV so high on the wall, you are making the standard viewing position one that forces you to sit unnaturally to watch, with your neck bent backwards. This increases fatigue while watching and can, over time and consistent repetition, cause significant neck pain. The other thing that gets to me about these walls is, rather than spending the money putting a soundbar in or a speaker system, fireplace is put there instead, which, if you were to ever have it on while watching a movie, would cause as much of a distraction as brightly coloured paint. But that's just my opinion. Sorry to any fireplace enthusiasts out there currently disliking this video as we speak. Number 4. Poor budget balancing. This is very common, primarily because the marketing that we see today often puts an emphasis on video quality over audio. But this is in fact the other way around. But I can tell you right now, if I had one system to watch for the rest of my life and I had to choose between a 7.1 system with a HD TV or an 8K TV with a soundbar, I choose the 7.1 system every time. Typically want to split your home cinema budget into 3 parts, putting 35 to 40% towards video, 35 to 40% on sound, and 20 to 30% on everything else. But ultimately, sound and vision is very subjective, so you have to do what's right for you. Number 5, underpowering. This kind of comes into the previous point a little bit, but the main reason that underpowering mistakes are made because the size of the room has not been considered in relation to the budget and the performance desired. In the quickfire questions video I made, we talked about speaker sensitivity and how it plays an important role in specifying the audio for your cinema. The more sensitive the speaker, the more power it has with less wattage applied. The problem being that as you double the distance away from the speaker, it loses volume. So the mistakes being made here are either that the speaker being selected is not powerful enough to reach the desired volume, or the power being applied using the AV receiver isn't enough to get the speaker to the desired volume. So what's the solve? Make sure you consider the size of the room and the distances from the listener when choosing speaker and receiver products. It is always better to overpower than underpower your cinema, as you do not want to be working those purchases at 100% of their capability all the time. Number 6, calibration. Room correction tech is everywhere today and available on near enough all receivers. But while this is extremely good at solving little problems after install has been completed, there is still a huge difference between that and professional calibration services. Think of your cinema as a performance car. Yes, it goes fast and it corners well, but in the hands of an F1 mechanic, they could squeeze 20, 30, or even 50% more performance out of an already fantastic product. So my advice would be save a small amount of money in your budget to get a pro in to tweak it. Number 7, no acoustic treatment. I find the lack of acoustic treatment disturbing in modern home cinema. And to be honest, it's not even the customer's fault a lot of the time. I've spoken with plenty of integrators, home cinema installers that shy away from acoustic treatment in a lot of cases. A, because they don't fully understand it themselves, or B, find it hard to justify to the client, even though it's one of the cheapest things you can do to exponentially improve and give real authenticity to the cinema experience. It is one of those things that just clearly separates home video and home cinema. Consider 10% of your budget, if you can, towards acoustic treatment. So that's absorption, diffusion, bass trapping products for your room, and also consult with a supplier about getting a design of where to put them. Lots of info can also be found online about how to design the acoustic treatment for your space, so be sure to check that out. Number 8, not enough subs. Also covered in our quickfire questions video, room modes are low frequency dead spots that naturally occur in all rooms, specifically when working with subwoofers. The best way to avoid them and cover more ground with nice deep bass frequencies is to use multiple subs in your room, whether it's 2, 3, 4, 5 or more. Perfect. But just be aware that only using one will likely leave 1 or 2 folks in the room without bass, which is bad. Everybody deserves bass. Number 9, not planning for the future. Sadly, when budgeting cuts come along, one of the first things to go is extra cabling for future upgrades. Take it from me, a home cinema is never completed. If you love cinema, chances are you will want to add speakers or upgrade projection as time passes to make the experience as good as it possibly can be. So budget for extra speaker cabling and easy serviceability for when you want to upgrade. Finally, number 10, too much seating. We see this one time and time again in projects that have been completed by non-cinema designers. Now, naturally, the desire of the client is to fit in as many people as they can for a party or entertaining. But in doing that, it often pushes the outermost seats to the very edges and corners of the room, which sadly is where the worst sound experience can be found. Seating is also the first thing you should choose when designing a cinema. So try and choose wisely, and while not many people can afford to leave a full meter of distance between seating and the surrounding walls of the room, it is advisable to try and leave between 250mm and 750mm separation if you can stretch to that. The more you can bring everything into the center of the room, the better the experience will be for everyone in it. Now for a few honourable and maybe strange mentions that didn't quite make the top 10 list. Drop-down screens in dedicated cinema spaces. Now, I get it when you have a TV behind the screen, but I have seen too many rooms where people want to hide the screen even though there is nothing behind it to display, other than maybe speakers. Just leaving a room with seats all facing one wall with nothing on it? Strange. Another one is overdoing the acoustic treatment. Just as a room cannot be dead enough, it can also be too dead. This actually deserves to be big mistake number 11, because I see lots of home cinema installers do this in their demo rooms, let alone client rooms. Absorbing too much of the sound in a room and reducing the RT60 to below 0.3 seconds actually makes it very uncomfortable to sit in. There is a reason why you can't spend very much time in an anechoic chamber. Also, when watching a film, you start to hear exactly where the sounds are coming from in the room. Rather than it being a sound that envelops you and passes over you, it's a sound where you can hear exactly which speakers the sound is coming from, which takes away from the immersiveness of the experience. I covered RT60 in the quickfire questions video, so check that out in the link in the description if you haven't already. Finally, chasing reference level sound. Don't believe that you always have to hit, you know, the kind of reference levels that commercial cinemas hit in order to have a good experience. This is not necessary. Reference levels are a term thrown around a lot in home cinema. Don't feel that you have to hit it just because they are the standards that commercial cinemas are held to. To be honest, I very rarely listen to a movie at what are considered reference levels, and anything from 85 to 87 decibels and upwards is absolutely fine, and you'll have a great experience. That's it. Once again, guys, if you enjoy the content that we are making, I would like to draw your attention to the like and subscribe button. By clicking this, you are justifying everything that we are doing here to provide you with all of the information and insider tips you need on your quest for the perfect cinema. All of the links to the videos that I've mentioned are in the description, as well as that link to Projector Central. Every subscription helps us to continue making this content for you, so thank you in advance.